Hi everyone, this is Hanelore from Sugar Yums. You might know me from Crazy Delicious on Netflix episode 6, and I wanted to share the recipe that I prepared on the show, and I think it's actually the recipe that won me the golden apple. So without further ado, here we go. This is the Fairy House Tart. First thing we need to do is prepare the tart shell, and to do this we need to mix some flour and some icing sugar in a food processor along with a bit of salt, just a pinch, and 150 grams of unsalted butter along with 1 egg. Now we want to pulsate this just enough to combine the dough, but don't overdo it. After we do this, we want to put it in some cling film and store it in the fridge, and I find it much easier if you sort of ever so slightly press it with the cling film and then press it as flat as possible and chill it for 30 minutes. This will make it much less sticky when we roll it out. And to roll it out, just flour your work surface and get going. We want this to be fairly thin so we get a nice shell, but not thin enough that it will break and not hold all the yumminess inside. And then I used, I think it's about a 10 centimeter cookie cutter to cut out 4 shapes, although this recipe can yield 6 of them. And then using my fingers, I'm just pressing it into the shape. These are some scone shapes. They're a bit taller than tart shells normally, but if you have a perforated tart shell, then that's more than enough. With these ones you have to chill it for 30 minutes so you can trim off the excess. And then I put some aluminium foil inside to prevent them from collapsing in. And then we bake them for about 15 minutes until they're all nice and golden, but not burnt on the edges. Let them cool for a bit, and then there we go, that's the end result. Nice and crispy, but also firm. The next thing we want to do is prepare the lime curd. Now this is very zingy on its own, so if you taste it, don't get scared. This is just to balance the sweetness from the meringue and the blueberries. So to do this, you want to combine some lime juice, freshly squeezed, with some lime zest, some sugar and some eggs in a small pot, and mix it well. And then we need to cook this mixture on the stove on low-medium heat while stirring continuously. We want to stir continuously to avoid any lumps forming or the curd sticking. Once we get these nice lovely bubbles forming up and the curd has thickened up, we add some butter, and this makes the mixture much creamier and delicious. And then we want to let it rest at room temperature for a tiny bit and then chill it. Make sure when you put the cling film on to press it so it's in contact with the curd. The next thing we want to do is the lovely blueberry filling. Now this features an elderflower gin flavour to it. This is optional, you can just replace it with some water instead, but it gives it a nice bitterness. And to make the elderflower gin, you can either infuse it with some dried elderflower or you can just buy it already infused. To prepare the blueberries, just sprinkle some lemon juice over them in a small saucepan and add some sugar on. We don't need too much because they're already very sweet, and a tiny bit of cornstarch just to create that lovely sticky juice. Give them a small mix and then place them on the stove on medium-low heat, stirring them ever so slightly. So as you can see, I'm almost pushing them around because we don't want them to break. We want them to stay quite nice and firm. When they start sticking together a bit, you can add the infused gin and then cook it for a few more minutes until it becomes a lovely sticky paste, just like this. Oh, I love the smell of it. The next thing we want to prepare is the Italian meringue. So what makes this meringue lovely is the fact that we don't actually have to bake it, because we will be cooking the eggs in the process. So to do this, we need to heat up a tiny bit of water with some sugar to make a very hot sugar syrup. Do this over low heat to prevent the sugar from browning. And once the mixture reaches 110 degrees Celsius, we can start whipping up the egg whites, get them to soft peaks. And when the sugar syrup gets to 121 degrees Celsius, we can start slowly incorporating it into the egg whites. And this is actually the process that cooks the eggs, making it safe for consumption. Now put everything in a piping bag fitted with a large piping nozzle, and that is it. For the chocolate decorations, I have this really lovely silicone mold with fairy doors. So I'm just brushing some gold luster dust. You can either put tempered white chocolate, or the easy version is candy melts. Just melt them in the microwave for short bursts of 15-20 seconds until it's nice and melted. And then make sure to scrape off the excess with just a regular knife should do. After that, we want to place it in the freezer for about 20 minutes, or in the fridge for a bit longer while you prepare the rest of your ingredients. Now this is where the magic actually happens, putting everything together. So get everything on your table. The lime curd is in a piping bag, it doesn't really need a tip. This is just so it's easier to put it into the tart shells. So start by piping up a generous layer of lime curd, on top of which we want to add the blueberries in the middle. Make sure they don't reach the sides, so we want them centered or almost stacked on top of each other in the middle, so we can then pipe the meringue on top. Piping the meringue is quite straightforward, just go around in circular motion. You can use a smaller tip, but this makes it much easier to pipe and it's a bit more coherent. And just go around and create the lovely roof of our fairy house. Because we want to be a bit extra, just spray some luster dust on top. And then we're ready to add our chocolate decorations and make everything truly magical. Obviously, you don't have to be as careful as me, I'm just being extra careful with them. And then add any type of edible flowers you can find. I have these lovely lavender flowers, and they just smell glorious as well. And a tiny mushroom. Just carefully place everything on top, and your lavender flowers. And after that, because we don't have enough fabulousness, sprinkle some edible glitter on top. And we are done. Here are the lovely Fairy House Tarts, as seen on Crazy Delicious. So cutting inside, you can see the meringue is very lovely and soft, and it balances with the tartness of the lime curd and the blueberries as well. So it's not an overly sweet dessert, but it's just my favourite. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the treat that got me the golden apple, and see you next time. Until then, have a magical day.